Lights, camera, action.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
Welcome back to the podcast. We hope you've had a great week. If you haven't, well, then I hope we can make your day a little bit better. Today, we're going to be covering Bumblebee, the 2018, is that
Correct.
right? Yes, 2018 Transformers spin-off movie, also slightly kind of soft reboot, and I'm excited about it. So, let's jump in.
All right. Well, Bumblebee was released on December 21st of 2018. It was directed by Travis Knight. It is starring Haley Steinfeld, Peter Cullen, John Cena, George Lendeborg Jr., Jason Drucker, Pamela Adlon, and Steven Schneider. It was distributed by Paramount Pictures. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes. It's rated PG-13. Its budget was $135 million and box office total was $468 million.
Do you know who my favorite actor is that you listed on the cast?
Peter Cullen.
Absolutely.
I kind of wondered.
I love Peter Cullen. For those of you who don't know, Peter Cullen is the voice of Optimus Prime, and that's primarily what his acting career has been built on. He is a voice actor. He's done lots and lots of other stuff, but that is by far what he is most famous for, most known for. And I'll tell you what, that guy, I mean, I could listen to him read the phone book and I would love it. He just has like one of those voices. It's just very unique, very, I don't know, there's a lot of gravitas when he talks. And I actually have some very interesting stories about Peter that maybe I can share later. But man, I love his voice as Optimus Prime.
Well, good, because I have a couple facts about him in my fun facts.
Oh, good.
So I'll dive into my fun facts. Those are going to be some of my last ones. But my first one is this movie is the least expensive Transformers movie made to date.
I 1000% believe that.
Really?
Yeah, I've watched every Transformers movie. I am a big Transformers nerd. Not like huge, but like I just love the IP. It's such a unique and fun property. I loved the toys as a kid. I've watched pretty much every cartoon. I've read the Transformers comics. And having seen all the movies, the majority of them being bad, in my opinion, almost all of them. Although I'll get into that a little bit later, just talking about like, they're not really, a lot of them aren't content movies. They're kind of popcorn, action movies, the majority of them. But anyways, the majority of them have been directed by Michael Bay, almost every single one, with the exception of this one and only one other one. So he has directed 5 Transformers movies, and he's known for being the, Hollywood blockbuster, huge explosions every 2 minutes type, even when like an explosion isn't warranted, it just explodes, like that type of stuff. So I believe it. And also just the fact that there's less robots in this movie, less Transformers. So, less to create.
Right. So now for this next fact, I don't know if it's still true because another Transformers movie just came out and I didn't look it up. I probably should have. But according to the article that I was reading, this movie was the lowest grossing Transformers movie, but was still considered a success because the previous movie, The Last Knight, lost $100 million.
Yeah, so a little bit of history here for you. Transformers, interestingly enough, has almost every movie got to the $1 billion mark.
Okay.
They kind of became known as the summer blockbuster, not because they're so good necessarily, but just because it's robots fighting, blowing each other up, stuff like that. Just like there's action, there's something of a story there. You have Optimus Prime, who's written extremely well most of the time, so he's kind of an inspirational character to latch on to. And there's usually a star or two in there that make things interesting. So, but unfortunately, I think Michael Bay can't get out of his own way and writes terrible movies, directs terrible movies, just in the sense that like they're very low substance wise.
Shallow.
Yeah, really shallow. Just really like very inappropriate comedy, like kind of depending on inappropriate comedy, as well as I feel like being disrespectful to the intellectual property of Transformers a lot of the time, but getting just enough right to kind of like keep going. And so there was a lot of combining factors of why each one got worse and worse and worse, but it got to the point where each one after, so by the time you got to the third one, people's expectations were pretty low, but like the third one kind of was like a bright spot. So then number 4 had like the Dinobots in there, so people got excited for that. That got to $1 billion, but the story was awful. And then 5 was just like totally awful. It just like, it's the whole thing's kind of been all over the place and been a dumpster fire. Like I said, popcorn movies, it's not like cinema. This is not Interstellar, you know?
Right.
So, anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I had an ultimate point there that I was making.
Oh, you're fine.
The point is that the last night tanked so hard that nobody wanted to see Bumblebee just because they're like, the last one was so stupid. It just like, it felt like it was insulting your intelligence when you watched it just because it's like, this is dumb humor. There's no story. Like it just lots of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's why it tanked. But it is the highest rated Transformers movie in terms of critics' reviews. It was scored very high.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, I've only seen 3.
I think you've only seen 2.
2 Transformers movies?
To my knowledge, you've seen this. Oh no, you've seen 3.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you've seen Bumblebee. You've seen the very first Transformers movie with Shia LaBeouf, and then the newest one we watched in theaters.
And I mean, I don't have much background on Transformers. Like, I never watched them before you and I were together.
Right.
And I mean, no offense, but just not my cup of tea, personally.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. I don't take any offense. Like, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. I think my offense would be towards the people who handle the property, Paramount, as well as Michael Bay, who, by the way, was a producer on this movie. And I feel like I can see some of his fingerprints throughout this movie, and we'll discuss that. But I really would love for the IP to be shopped to a different production company or somebody. And that's never going to happen because developed IPs are so valuable in Hollywood that people are never going to let them go. Unless, something pretty extreme has to happen. So it's very uncommon, but I just feel like I would love for you to watch some of the Transformers cartoons that have been handled with care that aren't necessarily geared directly towards kids, but kind of like that teenager age range. So it appeals to adults and kids because the property's handled extremely well there. And I just feel like it can be a lot more interesting. Superheroes aren't for everybody, but largely Marvel did a good job in the early days making compelling stories.
Right.
And that's what it's about. It's a good story, and that's typically what these movies are lacking.
I will say, though, out of the 3 that I've seen, I do like Bumblebee the best. I think it's good.
Yeah,
So.
It is. And I think the first Transformers holds up pretty well. It's still got some stuff here and there that's kind of meh, but through and through, which it's been a while since you've watched it, but after we watched it the first time, you're like, wow, that was pretty good. Like, just, it was an action movie, and it had lots of well choreographed action.
Okay. So my next fun fact is, I mean, obviously it kind of goes without saying, like, the Transformers have a lot of CGI and things like that, but they did build a life-size Bumblebee on set just to kind of help Haley Steinfeld like act against it and that kind of thing.
That was actually one of my production details.
Sorry, I stole it.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, I wasn't really going to add anything more than that, other than that it was a full-size model, painted and had light-up eyes, everything, for her to be able to kind of have a point of reference.
Yes. So my next one is that parts of the film were shot at the Mare Island Naval Shipyard in California. And it was at the same time that 13 Reasons Why was shot. So a lot of the scenes involved pyrotechnics and helicopters, which made the 13 Reasons Why crew have to like wait between filming takes so that they wouldn't have to like, edit out all of these loud
13 Reasons
noises.
Why. Is that
It's a
Netflix
show. Yes.
Oh yeah,
I never watched it.
I never watched it.
But it was like a really popular one.
Like, committed suicide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Real stupid.
Well, I can't talk.
I mean,
I
can't criticize it because I haven't seen it, but the premise, like, I don't know.
Anyways, we're not talking about that
topic.
show.
Yeah.
I have friends that really like it, and I'm sure I probably would get into it too. But anyways, so yeah, just kind of an interesting fact that they were both shot in the same place at the same time, so they had to kind of take turns filming.
Yeah.
My next one, Peter Cullen. It's a Peter Cullen fact.
My guy.
So like John says, he voices Optimus Prime, and he is the only cast member to appear in every Transformers film.
Yes.
And my next fact is also about Peter Cullen, and this is my last one. I didn't have many, but Peter Cullen actually said he didn't love working on this film because the studio used a different voice actor during like production, so they wouldn't have to pay Peter Cullen for multiple recording sessions.
Right.
They ended up only bringing him in at the very end to re-record all of the lines, so he had to match the previous voice actor's performance because all the animation and everything for Optimus Prime had already been completed and couldn't be altered. Yeah,
I feel bad for him. I remember listening to an interview or watching an interview with him talking about it, and Peter's a class act guy. He, talked really highly about Paramount and Transformers and the IP because he's committed to the brand, businessman through and through, which I appreciate. But he did say, just had a little sour taste in his mouth about that because that's something that was done very intentional. It's not something that was like, oh, well, we're thinking about recasting for Optimus for this movie just because he's a younger Optimus or something like that. It was very intentional that they wanted to just save money. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really unfortunate, but, it is what it is. And he did say, though, that he really liked Travis Knight and his work on this film, and that he really wanted him to make an Optimus Prime film.
Oh, really?
Which I would love. I would absolutely love that. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen, or at least not with Peter Cullen, which really stinks.
Yeah.
Because I believe the most recent Transformers film was his last movie.
Oh, okay.
He's 86 now. I mean, I think he's kind of ready to be done.
Yeah.
However, I believe, I might be mistaken, but I believe he gave approval for his voice to be used via AI for the cool character. Mm-hmm. I know James Earl Jones did that for Darth Vader just in the last couple months. He signed off for his voice to permanently be the voice of Darth Vader.
That's so cool that they can do that now.
Yeah, it is. I think it's, it's tough when you have characters that you love that have been defined by one person for decades, and then all of a sudden it's a different person.
Right, for sure. So,
okay, well, is it my turn?
It is. I couldn't really find a ton of interesting things on this one, sadly.
So I don't have a ton. What I do have is that a Bumblebee spinoff film had been planned for many years as the Transformers franchise was regularly reaching 100 plus billion, or 1 plus billion, not 100.
Wow.
1 plus billion at the box office with each movie. After Transformers 5, The Last Night, underperformed and got terrible reviews, Paramount decided to pivot and have the film be smaller in scope and to include less robots. Eventually, Travis Knight was brought on to direct, who, by the way, this was his first ever live action film. Prior to this, he had only done major productions big production stop motion films. So I thought it was very interesting that he was brought on to do this. I think he did a great job as a director. I will get on my soapbox here and say I did not like the most recent Transformers movie, the Rise of the Beasts. I had high hopes for it, and I was crushed. And I really wish Travis Knight would have directed it. He deserved it. He did a good job with Bumblebee, and it just, I don't know. Paramount continues to beat me as a fan of Transformers, and it's very disappointing.
Yes, I also saw it in theaters and wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sorry. I literally had that this was Travis Knight's first live action movie that he directed, like, in my notes, and I must have completely skipped over it.
Yeah, it's all right. So eventually Travis Knight was brought on, and once he decided that he was going to set the film in the 80s, because that's when the original Transformers cartoon, which is often referred to as G1, Generation 1, amongst fans, that's the era that the original cartoon was released in. Principal photography began on July 31st, 2017. Shooting locations include Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Vallejo, and Mar Island, California. Shooting wrapped on November 10th, 2017. Fun fact, they were 6 days ahead of shooting schedule.
Nice.
Yes, and visual effects were done by Industrial Lights and Magic. Love you, ILM. Great guy. They're great. Love you guys. Katina Creative and The Third Floor, which I'm not familiar with those. I should have looked in to see if they've done movies that we're familiar with. But anyways, and then the last production detail I have is that the production crew did create a full-size model of Bumblebee, as Emily shared. And with that, it is time to get into our rating. So, Emily, on a scale of 1 to 100, how would you rate this film?
Don't hate me. I'm gonna say a 75.
Ugh.
I'm sorry.
That's a little rough.
It is good. That's why I went like above the halfway point. But I don't know. I've never been able to get into Transformers much. It is a good story, a little cheesy. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. It does have some cheesiness. I was gonna go low, but not that low. So I'm gonna give it an 83.
Okay.
84. I'm giving it an 84 because I will say, as I've already mentioned, some of my gripes with many of the Transformers films is just that they seem dependent on like really like derogatory or inappropriate jokes and stuff like that, which like it just doesn't need to be in there, you know, especially when you keep in mind that like the intellectual property was and is utilized for children. The property only exists because of toys in the 80s. The toys were created before the cartoon was. The cartoon was created to sell the toys.
That is cool that the toys were created first.
Yes.
And it's based off of that.
Yes. Yeah. So the toys were created first, and when you keep kind of that line or that mindset in mind, it just, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way when filmmakers think they need to sell something that they have to do stuff like that.
Right.
And so on that note, this film really doesn't have a lot or any of that I can recall as far as like just aggressive, inappropriate jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really not in there. And it does have genuine humor in there. Parts where it's like I was absolutely not expecting that and like laughed out loud hard. Which is why I will give it bonus points. And also, the film has Bumblebee talk. It reverts back to the whole talking through the radio thing, which I'm not a fan of. I think it's stupid. It's something that was created by Michael Bay's team on the first Transformers movie, and they just decided to stick with it. It's never been a thing. So for me, it's like, why? But at least for the first 20 minutes or so, Bumblebee could talk, which I appreciate. So I do like that. I love, can't express enough love that this film has Cybertron in it, and it has kind of the Autobots and Decepticons. It has clippets, some very short scenes of their battle and war on Cybertron, which for me is like when Transformers is the most interesting, when they're fighting for their home world. I have no problem with them having to leave and come to Earth, but that's kind of been the entire focus of every single movie is like just what's happened after Cybertron.
Right.
And some of the most interesting stuff about Transformers takes place on Cybertron. So I do appreciate that they have that. Also, like the fight choreography for it, the directing, all of it was like phenomenal. Those scenes are so action packed. They have Generation 1 designs, which I love. It's so cool. We have classic designs for all the Autobots and Decepticons. We see some fan favorites. Starscream looks awesome. Decepticon, Shockwave, Soundwave, they all look great. Wheeljack, Optimus Prime, Ratchet. I could go on and on. RC, Cliff Jumper. All these guys that like I had the toys of when I was a kid. I had a giant Optimus Prime helmet that I could actually wear, and if you talked into it, it changed your voice, made you sound like him. Like,
that's cool.
It was so cool. I really do like Transformers. So seeing the IP handled correctly, at least in those short scenes, just really is near and dear to my heart, and it really strikes a chord with me. So I have lots of love and appreciation for that. And you know what? I'm going to link a video in the description. It's a trailer for a Transformers video game that came out in like 2012, 2013. It's only like 2 minutes long. But the whole premise is about Transformers fighting for Cybertron. It's a really well done trailer. It's a really cool video game. But when I watched this movie for the first time, it's immediately I thought of that video game trailer. It just, I don't know. They did it well, and to me, that was very respectful, and I appreciated that.
And what did you say your rating was?
84.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is backtracking quite a bit and way off topic, but
okay.
You had mentioned you wished you had looked up what Cantina Creative and I don't remember what the other one was that you wanted, like what other movies they've done. I mean, I can't vouch for the other one, but Cantina is behind a lot of major ones. If you were curious, I looked it up.
Okay, give us just a few big ones.
A lot of the Marvel movies,
okay.
So like Spider-Man: Homecoming, Avengers, Endgame, Captain America: Civil War, Age of Ultron, Guardians, and some others. Free Guy. That's a newer one.
Yeah.
Avatar: Way of Water, Hunger Games: Mockingjay.
Yeah, so they've done a lot of big stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. Getting off topic here.
Sorry.
Okay, it's circling back. Yes, that's cool. Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah. Okay, what are some of your, unless you were going to keep talking about your rating, I was going to ask what your favorite scenes are or standout scenes that you liked.
I was kind of just touching on that already. I think some other standout scenes would definitely be in the opening sequence when Bumblebee is on Earth for the first time and Blitzkrieg shows up and is trying to kill him or kill Bumblebee, and like, for your rebellion against Cybertron, like you're hereby sentenced to death, like all that stuff. Like that whole sequence when Bumblebee finally shows up. Because prior to that, you have John Cena and like the Sector 7 crew like doing a field exercise in the woods. That's all fine. I don't really care about it. I think this was one of John Cena's first like major blockbuster movies. He had done,
really?
Yeah, he had done movies prior to it, but it was one of his first like big ones. And his acting in this movie is definitely cheesy at times. So anyways, I don't really care about any of those scenes, but when Bumblebee shows up and then Blitzkrieg is kind of chasing him around and they're fighting, I really love that sequence. I also really, really, really love when I forget her character's name in the movie, but Haley Steinfeld. Charlie, yes. When Charlie and Bumblebee and Memo, Charlie's neighbor who has a crush on her, go egg the mean girl's car.
That is hilarious.
And
that is a good one.
Bumblebee starts smashing the eggs on top of the car and then ends up jumping on the car and flattening the whole thing. Well, he kicks it first, which is when it was unexpected, and then he like absolutely destroys it. That was hilarious. And then when they're running away from the police officer, and the police officer like finally gets up close and he's like, the car's driving itself. Like it was, there was some good funny moments in there. Also, her little brother, when they're like talking about him doing karate, and he's like, if anybody messes with me, I will literally rupture their spleen. I was like, what? This kid's like 9. That was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, those are probably the highlights. I think that what this movie has that the other Transformers movies don't is a good through line of a story. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of heart and a lot of character development, and I think that's all cool. I also think that some of that is this movie's problem too. I think they spend a lot of time on Charlie, which is okay. I mean, she's the human character, but I think that's been one of the biggest mistakes of the handling of Transformers is this idea that, well, we have to have a human character to keep the audience engaged and tethered to the story, which could not be further from the truth. I mean, everybody that's a Transformers fan is a fan because of the Transformers, not because of, this whoever human that befriends someone. Like, I understand trying to sell the property, like close to 20 years ago at this point when the first one came out. It's shorter than that, not quite that long, but I'm just rounding up. Mm-hmm. I understand that Hollywood was a little bit different back then. The world was a little bit different, but in a post-Marvel era especially, people are very accepting of new properties. And I'm talking broad scope here. Like the general masses, I feel like are at a point where they don't have to have this human element to keep everybody engaged. What they really need is just a good story. If you put out quality content, people are going to show up for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the end of the story. That is the truth. If you work hard, you put a quality story and it's supported and marketed well, people are going to go see it.
Right. And
so holding on to the human element of it, I think it helped this movie out where I think they get maybe a little too distracted in some of the former movies, but I think it also hurt this movie a little bit too. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of talking for a little bit. What are some of your favorite scenes or dislikes or anything?
Well, a lot of them you touched on. Like I like when, like I thought it was hilarious when Bumblebee like stomped on the car.
Yeah.
And the police chase too. I also thought it was kind of funny, like just like made me giggle a little bit when what's her stepdad's name? Ron or something?
Ron, yeah.
When he gives Charlie that book for her birthday.
Yeah, it's like Try Smiling is the name of the book.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
And then I also like when just kind of like I agree with what you're saying about like the human characters. Maybe the focus could have been a little bit less on them. But I did like the little like what's his name? Memo,
yeah, her neighbor.
Yeah. Like how, he was kind of working up the courage to talk to her, and every time it was like, sorry, like I can't talk right now or whatever. Yeah. And I just liked like the little like, teenage romance thing. Mm-hmm. And also like when they are quote unquote driving around together. I mean,
right.
Bumblebee's driving. But yeah. And also I just like Bumblebee and Charlie's relationship, and also like how like when John Cena's character and like all the military people came and Bumblebee was like protecting her. Yeah. And that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's everything I can think of right now. So
yeah, I think that I agree with pretty much everything you said. I do think that there are definitely times in this movie where it, like, rewatching it, because it's been a few years since I watched it last, there are definitely times where it just comes off as maybe a little cringy or a little cheesy.
Yes,
Some
I
of the
agree.
dialogue or whatever. And I guess I'm willing to overlook it, especially keeping in mind that, generally speaking, the movie is very clean. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a lot of cursing in it, when, not a lot of inappropriate scenes or humor or anything like that, which I very much appreciate, knowing that there's little kids sitting in the theater watching it, or at home, or, whatever, that this is a IP geared towards children. So I think it's great that you can have something like this that I, as a 7-year-old, would want to go see. I mean, I think I saw the first Transformers, the very first one with Shia LaBeouf, when I was like 9. Mm-hmm. That I would definitely want to go see in theaters, and that there's not a bunch of garbage in it. Mm-hmm. I do have a soft spot for that. Mm-hmm. But I think that while there were definitely times that, like, if I was going to be critical, Haley Steinfeld's character, Charlie, some of her dialogue and some of the story was just, like, maybe unnecessary or written poorly. I think Haley Steinfeld just does such a good job that I don't even really think about it. I kind of overlook it. I think she's a really good actor. I like her.
Yeah.
I think she's great as Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye series. Mm-hmm. I just, generally speaking, I like her as an actress. And I think she did a good job here, being able to convey a lot of emotion. Because the story focuses centrally kind of on, her dealing with her dad passing away from a heart attack, and still, kind of feeling the effects of that.
Right.
And, just some of the dynamics that comes out of that with her mom moving on and whatnot. And so, anyways, I think she did a really good job in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too.
And was able to overcome some of the cheesiness that was present. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of what else is on my mind. I really like Optimus Prime's depiction in this movie. And I think Optimus has very, very minimal screen time. But one thing I do want to touch on is just that this is only fresh in my mind because we saw the newest Transformers back in June when it was in theaters. Mm-hmm. And I could not stand Optimus Prime's depiction of that movie to the point where I wanted to walk out, just because I felt like it was such a disrespectful treatment of the character, mm-hmm. which was really discouraging. I mean, he's my favorite Transformer. He's the leader of the Autobots. He's always inspirational. There's this meme that it says, who do you think would give a better speech, Optimus Prime or Captain America? Because in all the Transformers, like every single Transformers movie, Optimus Prime gives an inspirational speech, mm-hmm. and Captain America has done that many times in the movies.
Right, yeah.
And one of the responses was like, Captain America would have you thinking that you could go win a basketball game. Optimus Prime would have a JV team thinking they could go out and beat the Lakers. And it's the truth. I mean, like, Optimus, the speeches he gives, and I think a lot of it is Peter Cullen's voice. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the gravitas that he has and how he's able to convey and carry himself as the character is really good. And so I love the action scenes that Optimus has. I love the dynamic he has with Bumblebee in the movie, which again is not much, but I just really appreciate when the character is depicted correctly, and it's on my mind because he was not depicted correctly recently. Mm-hmm. Fun story, or a fun fact, whatever, about Peter Cullen and how he decided to voice Optimus Prime. There's this great video of him talking about it, and I'll see if I can link it. It really chokes me up every time I watch it. I usually shed a tear. But he talks about his brother, his older brother. His name was Larry. He was a veteran, and he was back home from one of the wars. I don't remember which. It may have been Vietnam. It may have been earlier than that. I truly don't remember. Regardless, it might have been World War II. I really don't remember. But when his brother was back home from the war, he was asking him, he's like, so what are you doing for work now? And he's like, well, I'm doing some of this voice acting and whatnot. And so he's like, I actually have a gig coming up, an audition. He's like, will you drive me? And Larry's like, yeah. So as they're driving to the audition, Larry's like, so what is this character that you're auditioning for? And he's like, well, he's a truck. And he kind of laughed and he said, no, but he's supposed to be this leader of these soldiers. And, their home planet is dying and he's supposed to be the leader of the good guys. And Larry was real quiet, according to Peter. And he said, if he's a soldier and he's a leader, then when you voice him, I need you to be strong enough to be gentle. And pausing the story for a moment, when Peter said that, and again, I'm going to link this in the description below because it's such a cool video. You can see Peter get choked up when he says it. Mm-hmm. And I just think that speaks a lot to the nature of leadership and war and, what Larry would have seen as well as, every other soldier. And just the reality of being a strong leader, a man, is that, it doesn't necessarily equate to screaming at people or all this other stuff. Being a true leader, you can be strong and bold and courageous and be gentle. And so anyways, when Peter got into the sound booth to do the audition, he had Larry's kind of message ringing in his head, and then he read the script. And I can't do the Optimus Prime voice, but I'll do, an impression. But he was kind of quiet and he thought about it, and then he just said, I am Optimus Prime. And he forever was cemented as Optimus. Mm-hmm. So I love that. I think it's so cool. And, hopefully that's interesting to someone out there because I spent a couple minutes telling it.
Well, if it's not, it's interesting to me, John.
Well,
but
good.
I do think, it's cool that you said that just because you can hear that in his voice in every movie. You can.
It forever changed how I hear him voice Optimus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. After he said that, every time I've heard the character, I just think about the pain that the character carries, and you can hear it in the voice.
Yeah.
And such a testament to Peter Cullen and his acting ability to be able to do that. And I love it. On that note, speaking of AI and stuff like that, a lot of people have been working hard trying to kind of play around with AI and figure it out. There's some cool YouTube channels that will take characters like Batman or Optimus Prime and have them, their voices do stuff just because they're experimenting. And there's this one channel I found that has worked on developing an AI program to emulate Peter Cullen's voice, and they've had him read the Bible. And so I've listened to, and it sounds exactly like him. It is so cool and a little scary when you think about the future.
Right.
But it is so cool to hear Optimus Prime read Genesis. I listened to that and the biblical history of creation, Genesis 1, blew my mind. I cried when I heard it. It was so cool.
Well, I've heard an AI of Donald Trump singing the Rickrolled song, so.
Well, that is pretty funny too. But anyways, I think that's the majority of the things that's on my mind. I would say overall, this is a fun film. Mm-hmm. I think it has a lot of heart, and I do like it. It has a soft spot in my heart. I also recognize that being so small in scope might have hurt it just a little bit, but overall, I do like this movie a lot. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap this episode up?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us once again. Next week, we're going to be covering a favorite from our childhood, Night at the Museum. Ben Stiller, circa maybe 2007, 2008, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Probably. I don't know.
But it is currently streaming on Disney Plus if you want to watch it ahead of time. Great movie. Love that movie. It's a classic.
2006.
2006. Really?
Really?
Wow. That's crazy. So you would have been 6. I would have been 8.
Yes.
I used to watch that movie all the time before I went to bed. I had like a little DVD player in my room. I don't know. I liked it. Holds a special place in my heart. So anyways, we're covering that next week. We're excited about it. So if that interests you, please tune in. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you can find podcasts. Be sure to go follow us on Instagram. And we hope you guys have a great week.
See you later.
Love you guys. Bye.